Hi, Peter.
Hey, Red.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
What do you have for us today?
Well, before I tell you, I'll first tell you it's July 31st, 2025.
Thank you. I always forget that.
I have a painting that I did in Oman, August 2014. I've called it Renewal. I also was going to call it Rebirth, and I'll tell you why. I'm not sure which one I decided on in the end. I went with Renewal, but Rebirth was the original name.
And it's a smaller painting this time.
Yes, yes. Um, This particular painting I did at this event organized by what's called Paragon Arts, but the event itself was called Synergy Arts. And it was through the Oman Society of Fine Arts and this kind of not-for-profit organization called Paragon Arts. It was with the Oman Society of Fine Artists, so very high quality artists in the room, but very similar in terms of there's a group painting. You paint how you wish. Some people painted off photographs, some people painted still lifes, actually, but I painted out of my imagination as usual. And this is one where I had more of an intention before I started. I had an idea because what was happening a lot and what people were noticing a lot when I was painting, with almost every single painting, they would keep pointing out, like, which is what I think I even mentioned in the last episode, was peacocks. So I became really curious about it and I became a little bit fixated as well. So I decided this time, because peacock has a similar kind of story behind it when it comes to rebirth, like the phoenix. So I said, okay, let me put a little shapes in there that look peacock-like in terms of the shape, and there's several of them in there. Let me add some red as well to give the impression of fire, which would be the phoenix. So this part took me the bulk of let's say there was 3 hours to paint. We don't have as much time to paint in this as we did in the fusion arts. And suddenly the organizer said, you have 10 minutes left. And I went, 10 minutes? I said, I'm only like 2/3 of the way through. I still have to put all the leaves on the bushes. I hadn't done anything yet. So with my palette, and this is what's so magical about this one, I really enjoyed this a lot. I squeezed colors out of my tubes, I think 3 different colors on a palette. I took a palette knife and as quickly as I could, I mean, I was going as fast as I could. I wasn't paying attention other than just to dab onto the paint and put it onto the canvas and go to the next one. And I made it in time. So it was all about a race against time. No time to really plan or do anything when it came to those items, the leaves. Once it dried, I posted the image on Facebook and I got comments right away. Look at the birds. And I said, birds? And they said, look at all the little robins on the canvas, on the painting. I said, robins? What are you talking about? And they said, it means something as well. And so I was really curious. I said, because there's the phoenixes there symbolically, there's peacocks there symbolically, but for you to see birds. And then when I looked at it, I went, oh my God, look at all the birds, like songbirds. And when they said robins, I said, let me look up what robins means. So already phoenix, like I said, means rebirth, emergence from the ashes. Peacock means the same thing, and it's associated with Jesus. So Jesus is associated with the peacock for that very reason, the renewal, rebirth. So when I looked up robins for spiritual meaning, I got a message from one of the North American indigenous tribes, and I don't recall which one it was. It said they're robins. Robins are the sign of spring, which is about rebirth and renewal. And I went, my God, it has the same meaning in 3 or multiples theories, ideas from different religions, different parts of the world, different belief systems that all mean the same thing. And they ended up on my canvas, two on purpose, but the third one was completely unplanned. And I did it so quickly. I was amazed. So this was really stunning and really amazing for me to see how quickly, if one allows, and in this particular case, there was no resistance from me or no thought, no filters, because I was in a hurry. So if I'd spent a lot of time thinking and planning and trying to do it in a more sort of a controlled way, I wouldn't have ended up with this, I'm sure, because my thought process would have interfered with what ended up on the canvas. So that was really, really cool. Maybe a week later, I ran into a friend at one of the malls, and I'd been at the art event. As a matter of fact, the last painting we spoke about, he was at that event, the one that I called Resilience and or Next Step. It also has multiple titles to it because the meaning and the messages are different for me over time. Depends on my circumstances primarily. So he said, "Show me the one you did," and I showed it to him, and he's looking at it, and he started to tell me the species of birds that he was seeing. And he was saying, "See this one? This is this. This is this. This is that." I didn't write it down. I can't remember what they were, but I was just sitting there going, "My God, he's right. There are different species of birds on here, and how they ended up here so quickly and so reasonably accurately." I was really amazed. And so this is really a magical experience for me for this to happen.
This is one of my favorites of yours. And yes, when you said robins, I was like, yeah, but that one looks like a kingfisher, or that one looks like a sparrow, like, or a finch, like these small little birds. It really is a beautiful piece. I enjoy this one a lot.
Oh, thanks a lot. And it's one of those ones too, because I put a lot of texture into it, like with, I think it was mainly um, palette knives that I was using to create the textures. I think I might have been using some of those rubber spatula like
Right.
as well,
Nice.
but I think it was mainly steel palette knives but for this one because I was playing around. I'm always experimenting. Definitely when I was putting the birds up, I'm just trying to recall back, but I'm pretty sure that was steel. I had a whole bunch of different kinds of palette knives because I had gone to Germany for Creative World, which was another incredible experience. And there I managed to pick up some free samples of different types of palette knives. And so I was playing around with them as well at the same time. And I like this one a lot too because of the texture that's in there and because there's some fairly shiny paint, uh, especially in the background, the green. When you get the light on a different angle, this one really looks very, very different. If you're get the light at a certain angle, you're standing at a certain angle. So the time of day, things like this, it really shows quite differently. And when you're walking around it and it's on the wall or on a chair or something like this, and as you see it, you can start to see things kind of coming out from the canvas. And I like that too. I like working with texture. It's fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any metallic paint in it because there's like matte finish, then there's a little bit metallic, and then there's shiny texture, and then there's like sponge texture. So you've got like four things going on, what it looks like to me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I used sponges on this one. I don't recall that I did. But there was the one the previous week, a lot of sponge was in
Yeah,
that
it's
one.
very interesting.
Yeah. This one was done a week after Ramadan, but the following year. So
Hmm.
there's a lot, and I'm aware of it, although I don't really feel it in a tangible way. I know there's something going on, and this goes through me. And so the residual, let's say, energy that was dissipating after Ramadan had finished or Eid had finished, it was still sensible for me, or at least my subconscious or unconscious. And that was, I feel, what helped express what ended up being on the canvas here and why those birds showed up as they did, just because of that kind of energy.
So the rock garden picture, it wasn't finished. Um, but because it's the desert, it was very almost like three tones. It was like blue with the sand color and like some browns for the shadows. So even the mountains in the background, they were still sand colored with like some shadows on them. This one is completely like jungle,
Hmm.
full grass. Like, is there a difference in atmosphere, even globally, as an environmentalist, that sometimes in your field, what you've been studying or looking at, do you think that ever influences what you're painting?
That's a really good question. And actually, as you were describing that, it took me back to the time in Brazil, which I believe I told you
Oh,
about
I
when I
see.
went into that park
Hmm.
off Reforma Boulevard. That was intense. That was intense. And now that I think about it, The green that's the background on this is very similar to the green that I saw, like the orb in my
Wow.
mind when I went into that park. Very similar. So the influence is really important. It's really big. Sometimes it's immediately my immediate surroundings, but not in many
Mm.
cases not.
You know the painting that was like a river, like Suma's hair.
Oh yes.
Now you know. Um, were you studying or dealing with something at that time that was to do with waterways or rivers or anything? Because literally, like today, I realize I'm kind of going on a journey, like globally, like earthly, with your paintings. Now that I look at it,
Mm.
we've been to the river, the sea, we've been under the ocean, we've been in jungles, we've been in the desert. We even went into the sky, with the birds taking off out of the fields.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we'll go into outer space too
Yeah.
with some of the ones
Oh,
later.
yes. How exciting.
And those are
Yeah.
really,
What I
really
love the
interesting.
most is your paintings really are so you, really.
Mm.
And even though, people spend a lifetime trying to find a style to paint in or to build a style, but right from the beginning, you've had this, it's always been, to do with earth. The earth is your symbol, it's the thing that when you see things, it's always from nature, really, that's dominant. It's not like you see a red car or, you found a dollar bill. It's always like a white dove or
Mm.
a nine cats or a crow, So I
Yeah.
love this. It's always an animal or nature or obviously your muse,
Yeah.
dear Suma.
And the sky and the stars, to be quite honest. Um, Again, we haven't discussed any of those yet. You've seen some of them, but I can recall when I was very, very young. So I can have memories before I was one that are quite clear for me. But I remember lying in bed with my eyes closed, and I could just see so many colors and shapes flowing, almost like little dots that were like a flock of birds that were in unison flying, but these were colors instead. I could see them very clearly, and I used to just sit there and lie there with my eyes closed and just watch the scene. It was like watching the cosmos, yeah, speeded up. So I could see all this flow of clouds and stars and things moving. So stars are really important. I even had a telescope my parents bought me when I was younger. I used to look at the stars. I used to know a lot of the constellations. I was fascinated with everything to do with what I could see, like you said. So, of course, what I saw the most and experienced the most was nature. I was always out in the streams and the woods and the fields all the time. Was my teacher. This is my home. But my eyes were turned up a lot towards the stars. Probably why Star Trek was my favorite episode and my favorite series when I was young. I think that started when I was about 12 years old. It was a game changer for me. It really brought a lot of things into play for me because they were exploring the unknown. And that's what I feel I've been doing ever since. And even before that, exploring it. So I could really relate to it and how they dealt with different cultures because I have very diverse heritage. And this also interested me. I remember when we took our two sons to the Bahamas for my grandmother's 90th birthday, and my older son David asking when we were sitting there, he goes, Dad, are all these people, he's 4 years old, he said, are all these people family? Because black, mulatto, brown, blonde hair, blue eyed, all this, like you name it.
Would you
That
mind? I'm not sure you ever spoke about all the different cultures that your family are from. Could you just
list them?
name? Yeah, list.
Okay. On my mother's side, so she grew up speaking German. Her last name's Schneider. Her family, so her father and mother, or actually her father, I don't think he was married at the time. He moved to Alberta along with his brothers. They were living in what's now the Ukraine. They were part of what's known as German farmers or farmers of German heritage living in, at the time, Soviet Union, called the Volgas. So if you're living in the Volga River Valley, that's where the name came from because a lot of German farmers there. They were in a different place, but they were also Vulgus. And they moved because otherwise they were going to starve to death. They were being really treated poorly. They had to leave to survive, so they moved to Canada. My grandfather married um, my grandmother, obviously, who was born in the US. So my grandfather, other than the Russian German influence, Ukrainian, hard to know which one to call it now, also Irish roots. And that was from the Irish potato famine. So they left Ireland to escape that difficulty, that challenge, and they just ended up walking into another one when they ended up in the Soviet Union. So it was all about escaping. And my grandmother on my mother's side, she was Dutch roots primarily, so American and Dutch. They escaped or they left Holland because of religious persecution. So the only place they could get free from it, they were Quakers, was to move to the US. And that's where in Philadelphia, and that's where they escaped it. And they met. So my mother born in Canada, grandmother born in US, grandfather born in Ukraine, of German roots and Irish roots. My father, he was born in the Bahamas, and he looks, well, so I have on my father's side African. His first name is Ramon for the Spanish. We have French, we have English, and Carib Indian, which is what my father looks like. He resembles a Carib, the indigenous people that used to be pure there but now have disappeared or been integrated or assimilated. So it's, yeah, it's quite diverse.
Wow. So that makes you
Human
Canadian
being.
and a little tiny hula baba.
Makes me a human being, but it's really interesting how
Yeah.
that got expressed in both my sons. They both love traveling. They both have a strong interest in cultures. That's why my older son took anthropology at university. And in particular, he took as his other major Greek and Roman studies, which really interested me. I was really curious about that.
Which one is it that can speak lots of languages?
That's Chris, so that's my younger son. So he picks up languages so fast.
Wow.
He really surprised us while he was in diapers, how he was able to learn a language. Basically, in the first one was a song that he had heard, and within after just two plays out of a 15-song CD, multiple languages, every
Wow.
culture and language from Africa and some from Latin America. He sang one of the songs, African songs, every word, every verse, perfect.
Wow.
And he'd only heard it twice. And it's really an amazing um, uh, ability he has.
And
So,
they both live in Canada?
yes, yeah, they do. They've done a
Amazing.
lot of traveling and they itch to travel as much as they can. They travel. So, David has taken a couple of trips on his own to China, to the tea growing areas because he loves tea and the way he makes it and the experience of having tea with him, it's out of this world. It's magical. It's really, really special when he makes tea. It's,
Did he learn it a certain way, or did he like grow his own method, so to speak?
I think, a combination.
Nice.
I think a combination. But so when he's doing it, you can tell he's really feeling it. It's, I remember watching him one time. He was boiling water and or heating water because he never let it get to boil because of the particular tea leaves that he had. And he knew the temperature it should be at. So he was watching the kettle and he put his hand on it and he used his hand to determine when the water was hot enough. Then he preheated everything a certain way, like all the containers. And once he put the leaves in the bowl or in the pot, he went and sat down and watched TV for a little bit. Then he hops up like he's got a clock playing in his back of his head, pours the tea, and then he goes, "Dad, here's your tea. Wait 2 or 3 minutes before you actually have your first sip." So it's sitting there in a cup. And I think that was all to let the molecules settle down and let the tea kind of really come to its full flavor. And I was going, okay, I wonder when that's going to be. He said, "Don't worry, I'll tell you." And just like that, he said, "Okay, now you can drink your tea." And I don't know if it was because of watching him made me intrigued and fascinated, but the taste of this tea was incredible. It was so well balanced, so smooth, so it was really, really nice.
What was the flavor? I'm now intrigued.
It was he used mainly oolong tea, So it had a little bit of tartness to it, like oolong, because it's semi-fermented
I've
green
never had
tea.
oolong tea ever.
And so it had a really, but he did it in such a way that it was quite delicate at the same time. So
Mm.
yeah, it was nice. So back to this notion about different parts of the world, and you're asking about the river, different sort of ecosystems and things like this. A lot of my paintings, I end up without planning under the sea a lot. I don't know exactly what happens and why, but I just go with it. So was there anything specifically with that painting, the first one, why I did a river, or that was a feature of it or a theme? I honestly, I don't know. I think it had something to do with the theme that we were supposed to paint to, flow.
Right.
But I don't know if I was studying anything at the time in relation to rivers. It's just something that comes to me. Just like sometimes it's about outer space. Sometimes that same outer space or cosmic view also looks very microscopic. It could be something that's atoms. So this really relates to the whole notion of scale and how you can have very similar objects at very microscopic scale, and they look very similar in their form, at the celestial or cosmic scale,
Yes.
and so, or fractals. So this I saw quite a bit was showing up. And now that I think about it, and again, you ask these questions and the answers come up or these ideas come up, it's this notion because I'm certain that I end up in the quantum field. I end up outside of normal space and time. My awareness or consciousness is able to touch and tap into that. So when you get into that zone, or when you connect with it consciously, because we're always in that zone, we're just not aware of it. This is where time and space really take on a whole new meaning, and in some ways, no meaning at all. So this is where something that is microscopic can be as prevalent as something and as comprehensible as something universal or cosmic. You can see them both at the same time equally well and experience them both equally well. And this is something, and thanks to your question, that I've really learned and started to understand about just who we are as entities, and how much our five senses really cloud and mask what really is on around us.
Yeah. I think growing up in a religious way myself, they say that, it's the body of flesh that will make you stumble, our senses and the fleshly body. Um, and it wasn't until I worked in a disabled school that I really learnt that we really don't need a lot of our senses to, in quote, see, because I was dealing with kids that had cerebral palsy, kids that were blind, deaf, mute, kids that couldn't walk, but the joy and how they lived was so much more in a way. It's a completely different level to what the
Mm,
common person lives, the average person. But their world is so much more magical
mm,
to me. And they really, I was at a time, I had left my religion and I was lost. I didn't have any form of creed. I wasn't told, what to believe or how to speak anymore. I could create my own culture. And that was the first thing I went into. So these disabled kids really inspired me to seek out different ways of looking at the world because my own vision, my physical vision, was ugly. I didn't like what I was looking at all. And they really taught me that, you don't have to look with your eyes. You can look with your hands. You can, you can hear with your body. Like you can put your foot on something and the heat of it and the vibration of it, and you know what I mean? You can
mm-hmm,
you can hear the rock through your foot basically. It threw me into a space where I had to think for myself and relearn how to critically think and not have, because in the back of your head you always have the religious rules, like
mm,
you can't do this and da da da, and the shame and the guilt and this all the stuff that keeps you plugged into a certain way of life if it's given in the wrong way.
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that live it, in my eyes, correctly in the metaphoric way,
Right.
which is how I think life should be lived. I think it's way more poetic and it shouldn't be so matter of fact. So when it comes to religion and science, I think a mix of both would be great for everybody because you can't live on just science and you can't live just on woo woo land, as they say. But this is why I've enjoyed meeting you so much because you're a man of science, yet you paint in spirit and you bring them both together like in my favorite way. And that is why I'm filming you.
Hmm. Well, thanks, Red.
Yeah.
It's interesting of the sciences that I decided to go in, I
Mm.
found physics way too abstract. I found chemistry too much memorization. I just was too lazy and not interested to do that. I even failed my midterm because I refused to memorize the different formulas. I said, I'm not going to be bothered. And I mean, as you can see, I got through everything fine. But uh, geography, physical geography especially, I loved it because I could relate to it. This gets back to one of your earlier questions. Just what I could see, what I could feel, what I could sense through my senses. But beyond that, this is what I studied and why I went into geography, because I could still apply it in a logical way, but there was so many variables with geography and then ecology. You're dealing with so many that you have to rely on intuition. You have to rely on your feel for it. You can't measure everything and predict what's going to happen unless you have an intuitive sense. That's the only way that you can function in these fields. And this translated really nicely when it came to painting, because I had some religious upbringing as well, but not strong. My parents weren't strict about it. And my roots are very diverse when it comes to that as well. And I think I was blessed to have all those different kind of genes flowing through me that could understand, let's say, the divine in very different ways. And I was very fortunate that my grandmother in particular was a Quaker, because Quakers really supported people having their own revelations and encouraged them to share them with, the congregation, as well as to abide by sort of the bigger ones that are, in the Bible and things like this. But they encouraged that. And this was also, I think, very important, that kind of freedom, that permission to explore your place in the world, not just in a material sense, but in a spiritual sense as well. So I got a nice balance. Very fortunate to have all that. And this definitely shows up in my paintings. Um,
Yeah, I find it interesting how an experience can go either way. For example, your family had to leave places because there was no food, there's famine, etc., religious issues. That could have easily gone down the path of you, being so scared of being hungry, that you became a greedy person or you really stuck your feet in somewhere, but you haven't. You've luckily or thankfully or blessedly gone the other way where you're a person who is diverse and explorative and, you enjoy traveling because it somehow through your bloodline, it picked up like, we're going to move from this place, not like, oh no, where are we going to go? And these kinds of narratives can really shift, how we move today. And I'm sure my ancestors, there was something along the line of why I am how I am today, but I haven't explored it as much as you have, which I love that you know so much about your family history.
that's interesting what you're saying. And I think when my family, from the different parts of my family history on both sides, like on my father's side, we were slaves from somewhere in Africa. I don't know exactly where. And that was clearly about survival. But once they got their foothold in the Bahamas, then they switched into I think, their normal mindset, which is about prosperity, about, building a life and about abundance. And many instances, when I think back, the mental or the mindset was more along the lines of abundance and possibilities than lack and loss. And this is something that I've also been blessed with. So I was naturally inclined this way because of just the DNA that I received. And when I think about family members on both sides, very, very successful. And they were in many ways stepping out of the box. And they did that with full belief, in a fearless way, creative, and So I get all those things, I believe, from my upbringing and from my roots. And so I'm just very lucky. And my parents, my dad was in the Air Force. He traveled a lot. So there's many times, it might be 3 weeks, and my father wouldn't be around. So my mother couldn't control 5 children. So we had a lot of freedom. And so we were able to really do a lot of exploration and get that into our systems, especially in nature, because we lived primarily on Air Force bases or military places. So it was a sense of security in there, and there was a lot of freedom inside. And all of this really helped in terms of where I am now.
And your sons, I mean, they've almost got acute abilities from the size of your families in language and sports.
Yeah.
Do they paint, either of them, by any chance? Or maybe they'll pick up a brush when they're in their 50s.
Well, yeah, maybe. Well, I we painted one time together, maybe twice, and they both have unique styles of painting, and they both enjoyed it. I enjoyed painting with them. Could they paint? Yes, they definitely could. Chris is especially gifted, I think, when it comes to colors and forms. And David has this really unusual ability to create, I guess you can call it like a primitive style art, but you can't take your eyes off it. I remember
Oh,
this and I
wow.
went, I can't stop looking at it. Even though at first I was laughing in a way because I thought,
No, but I love this indigenous kind of look in art. It's one of
yeah,
my favorites because it's almost symbolic and it's a
yeah,
pattern. So it's like abstract, but there's something earthy about it.
yeah,
It's magnetic. Yeah.
yeah. It was almost like he had done cave painting
Wow.
and took a little bit of these kind of forms, put them on canvas in a certain way. It was really, really interesting. My mother, when we showed all three of our paintings, and I was sure mine was the best, she chose his without hesitation. And, I didn't speak to her for a while after that. But yeah, all these kind of abilities, I believe, I mean, there's a certain extent of it is innate, but a lot of it is within all of us. It's just if you look back in your family history, you can get some big clues as to who you are and what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And if you can free yourself from the constraints and the conditioning of when you're, in school from your family, then you can start to discover who you are. And I mean, it was me flying and moving to this part of the world from Canada to
Mm.
Oman. This is when the painting started. It's when I freed myself from, let's say, my obligations and the constraints of the society, and I was able to become more me. And the painting just showed up. So for the boys, I would expect that if they really were able to do this and they had the freedom or took the freedom to the same extent I would, I could see David, for example, being a shaman. I think he's got this in him a lot, a lot. And about, hopefully he doesn't mind me talking about him like this, about, I'd say 10 years ago, he said, I don't believe in God. And he was adamant about that. And so, okay, didn't argue with him because that's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
But now he refers to him a lot.
Mm.
He uses terminology. He even uses the word shaman, things like this.
Oh,
It's
wow.
very, very interesting.
Did
So
something happen to change that for him, or do you know?
well, he went through a really difficult time
Mm.
with huge, huge anxiety because he wasn't able to figure out, he wasn't a very good match for where he was, what he was experiencing, and what he wanted to do. And it was a very deep spiritual disconnect that he had, misalignment, if you will. And it just, as he tried to resist it, and the more he tried to resist, the more difficult it was, and the more demanding it became. And then eventually he just reached a breaking point. And and he's still, I would say, in recovery mode. Um, he started to perceive and understand things slightly different and express things a little bit differently. It was actually really amazing to be a part of that and to witness part of this. It's incredible how brave he is, how he's maintained a certain quality about himself of kindness, of compassion, of thoughtfulness. Very sensitive. It runs in our family. Definitely, both boys are sensitive like me, and It was almost like a crisis that did it for him.
It often is, funnily enough.
Yeah. I think it's what it takes because I mean, there's you and then there's society.
Yeah.
And if you're here, especially if you're here as, let's say, a light or a beacon, because once that shell breaks, the light starts to shine out. It's very difficult to, depending on what circumstances you find yourself in, to be able to step out. And if you try and keep yourself in, you end up building the pressure up inside as you just try and stay there. And you feel more and more self conscious because you can feel something's going on inside. You don't want anybody else to see it. And then eventually you can't contain it anymore and just like this.
Yeah.
And then once you regain your kind of orientation, there you go. I was lucky this way. For me, it was this opportunity. And it was not long after I started to paint. And it's the conversations, and I won't speak about them now, but it'll make you, of course, why would you say that then, Peter? But what's going on now, in the world, with the tsunamis, the volcanoes, and all the disruptions socially, all the wars, all this kind of thing, which is a response to the shift that's going on the planet, I believe. I painted something along that line in 2014, very detailed. And I was actually sharing it with a friend last night, and he was just flabbergasted because he was telling me about what he was understanding. And then I showed him the painting, and he goes, okay. So
And he does what? Sorry.
he does many things.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
his profession?
It's no easier for me to answer.
No, sorry.
He used to be, I think when he was young, he was a child model. When he was a little bit older, like when he was in early 20s, he was the spiritual, one of the spiritual nominated people in Tibet. So he
Oh,
was given this position by the government because his abilities were extraordinary.
that's so cool.
He's done archaeology work, which is what he's partly doing in Oman right now. He's writing a book. He's done filmmaking. He's somebody you can't label as what does he do.
Hmm.
It's it's fascinating. I can sit and listen to him for hours. Actually, it's amazing the sort of things that he's experienced and has done. People know about him, and he gets calls from people, from strangers. When he will show up in a country, he'll get a call from
I might
somebody.
call him after this.
Okay, yeah, I won't give you his number, but he'll hear you anyway.
Yeah. I was gonna say, he'll probably call me.
Yeah,
So you showed him a painting that you did in 2014, and what did he have to say about it? In what sense?
he said this is exactly what's going on now.
Oh, will we see that painting?
Maybe,
Nice.
maybe we could. Maybe the last episode.
Yeah. Going back to you saying that knowing your family history has helped you know about yourself. Um, for people that don't have a family history or can't get hold of it, I always wondered how I have a few friends that don't know their family history and they don't even know who their parents are, for example. Um, I grew up with two kids like that before the whole ancestry thing came up. And I moved to Dubai and I went to Vipassana. And I don't know much about my family history either. I know like trickles, but not definites. And I went and did this silent retreat and I still don't know it, but I heard the difference between me and my bloodline voice. Does that make any sense? So it's like I can feel when something's happening to me, either biologically or
Wow.
mentally, I can tell the difference of whether it's my ancestry, someone else's voice, or it's mine. So
Wow.
I really enjoyed that experience.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, but I do put it down to, again, why we speak, is being in nature. Like it's only sitting quietly in a garden of trees and birds and having the earth under your feet while you're where you're sitting and breathing in and out like we belong here. We've created all these boxes that we live in I don't know how we're meant to actually. Are we meant to live in squares? I don't know. What are we meant to live in? Circles, huts, triangles, teepees?
Well, I mean, if you talk to, and I think you've met her, my friend Amand.
Yeah.
So definitely not boxes. Her research shows that domed ceilings are way better. Um, Materials that are made out of the earth, much, much better for you. Non-reflective surfaces, much, much better for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So some of the things that you described in terms of, you showed me very much what her research shows. This is the right kind of thing if you want to be energetically or frequency wise aligned with who you are and with the planet.
Mm.
So yeah, it's in terms of the roots, there are different ways. Like how I learned about the Volgas was by accident, in a way. Not by accident, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'll talk about it and then you can erase it if it's not allowed. So during COVID, I became curious because I have so many of these mystical experiences. I thought, is there a way I can manage this and dive deeper into these experiences so I can get more out of it if I have specific intention, if I know how to look, what to look for, and what to feel. So this is when I signed up for this mediumship course, this Suzanne Giesman. So it was a random selection from the internet, and I said, okay, let me sign up for this. I got time. I'm on lockdown, can't go out. Might as well do something. And it was during one of these sessions. I still remember because of the process you go to get into the the state of mind to invite people like your ancestors to come and connect with you. And so you wait for them. And I remember entering into this space in my mind, and I could see my grandparents, especially, and their ancestry from my mother's side of the family. I could see them clearly in a circle. I can see it now,
You know,
actually.
that's very common on, sorry, just to sideline the website Near Death Experience. A lot of people talk about going up into a circular,
Mm,
like almost auditorium of ancestors, like
mm.
everyone standing around. Did you see that kind of thing?
It was more like a circle.
Around
So,
you or?
no, it was like there was a portal or gateway,
Yes,
and I was
exactly.
going up, and they were all around
How
in a
interesting.
circle, and they were happy, they were smiling, and I went up, and I thought, is this my imagination, or I'm not sure,
Mm-mm.
but I ended up in this space, and then what I was doing was writing words down as they came, even if I didn't know how to spell them exactly. I did it phonetically, and the second word I wrote, might have been the first, was Volgas. And I went, wonder what that means. And so it was one of a number of words that I wrote. And then when I looked up on Google, what does Volgas mean? The first one was some Norwegian gas company. I said, well, probably not that. And the second one
Your ancestry is
was the
gas.
ancestry. And I went, and this is when I learned, because when I read about the Volgas, they had, many of them had moved to Medicine Hat, Alberta, which is where my grandfather moved. So
And then is that how you did you then go through it family wise and ask and find out?
there was nobody to ask
Oh,
actually at that point. But
but
I,
that's how
I
it happened
I knew enough about the history. I knew that
that they
they had
moved.
lived in Ukraine, that there was, he was born there.
Right.
He grew up speaking German. He was a farmer. His brothers were farmers. It all just fit perfectly.
Mm.
They moved to Alberta en masse. And so this is how we discovered it was this way. So there's different ways to learn. Maybe you need a clue, a little bit of a hint, but
Exactly.
through the right ways, through right mechanisms, you can learn. And I've learned a lot of things about people through painting. Not necessarily my family, although I had that one where just about 2 or 3 days before my uncle passed away, a painting that I had done, let's say 6 months earlier, had, my good friend in Alberta had asked about it in Western Canada. And I said, well, it's yours. And he goes, well, what's it called? I said, I have no idea. I didn't name it. No idea what it's about, except I think it's got something to do with under the sea. And he goes, okay, thanks. And then when I finished sending my message, what showed up on my Instagram within 5 minutes, maybe 10, but I think more like 5, was an image a painting that was done recently by a Polish painter that looked almost identical. Mine's very abstract, his was more real. It was unbelievable, the similarity between the two. And he'd called it Atlantis. And I went, okay, wow, so it's about Atlantis. Maybe, makes sense. 2 days later, my uncle passed away. And he was the co founder and vice president of Atlantis in the Bahamas.
No way.
Yeah, yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah. So these kind of things happen. And it's happened with family friends like my friend Vlad, who you'll meet in October.
Nice.
His brother in law, clearly, I painted something that he was channeling through me to his wife after he had just passed. And so these kind of things happen as I paint. And this is why, in some ways, it's difficult for me to explain exactly what my thinking process was, because I have to suspend it when I'm painting. I have to just allow things to flow through me. So it's a fine balance between sort of being careful and managing what I'm doing and just allowing it to happen. There are times I feel that I'm not in control at all. Somebody else is choosing the colors, somebody else is controlling my hand, my body, what I paint, what I feel. Once I open that door, it just starts to happen. And if I'm fearless, actually, I enjoy it. There's no fear at all for me.
Yeah, I
And
was
I
gonna
do it
say.
lots of times in very poor light, so I can't really see very well what I'm doing. But it doesn't matter, because it's more to do with the energy that's coming through me and more to do with like trust and faith. The closest I can come to in terms of a practice that helped trigger this is yoga, which I tried twice and I had some incredible experiences doing yoga. Just really magical. So there are different ways that people can tap into this greater selves. And for me, I've been very lucky that I've been able to, through having a bit of an understanding of my family roots, having had a lot of freedom because my dad wasn't around, my mother couldn't manage us, to be going off all over the place and exploring, sort of learning that way, like what you said, in terms of spending time in the peace and letting that energy of nature connect with you. And there's so much of it that if you allow, that will eventually connect with you.
And it's always a good time.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And even last night I was watching something on TV. It was a song came out, Native American song, and there's a male warrior in the forest, and he's got a relationship with a timber wolf, and they're very close, and there's mutual respect and love, and they're very close to each other. And it took me back to my experiences up in the Northwest Territories when I was doing my masters, these close encounters with wolves, which was, I was thinking about it. My God, Peter, I can't believe that you just stood there. He was a little bit further away than you are right now, but not that much. Pure black alpha male.
Wow, pure black?
Yeah, he was
That's
pure
quite rare,
black.
isn't it?
Probably. It was incredible.
It always amazes me how different wolves are from dogs, even though they are descended from wolves. They're
Yeah,
just another kind of species. Like, they really are wonderful.
they're so. I mean, they radiate power. They radiate strength. They radiate control. They radiate like kings of the forest or kings or wherever they are, and they're not. They control their emotions. They're very organized. Um, they're strong leaders, amazing leaders. They're curious, and I'll never forget that experience. Out of all my experiences with nature, and I've had quite a number of them, that face to face, first time face to face encounter, I had a number of close ones with him, but this one was really like we were interested only in each other and curious. And when we met, there was no sign of aggression or fear from either one of us. We just studied each other. We just looked at each other. It was very silent, kind of like telekinetic or telepathic communication between us. And then once he understood he had nothing to fear from me and that I was not afraid of him, he just turned and went into the forest. He said, okay, I understand who you are enough that the next day when the whole pack came into the camp and the one that was with him was white, pure white. So there was a black and a white wolf. It was incredible. And then the rest of them were like the typical wolf colors. Once they realized I was still there, they turned and went back into the forest, except for the alpha male. He stopped and defecated on the boundary of the forest. And
I was like,
I took
step
that.
in this, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, recognizing this as a boundary marker, they wanted to reinforce it. So once they got into the forest, they started to howl and to sing. And it was for me. It was, I mean, nature was speaking to me. And it was unbelievable. It was a beautiful feeling. And that was really powerful. Now I get chills just thinking about it.
Even I do. I wasn't even there. I was like, oh, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, it was really, really special. And getting back, I think, to your question from a little while ago, my experiences in nature I carry with me. And I don't know when they're going to come out. But the feeling that I had then, I may experience it while I'm painting as well. Maybe not on the same scale, but I remember it. And it guides me and helps me when I'm painting. So was I feeling it for this one? I don't know. But it could have been something like that I was feeling.
Well, you said that you were going for the peacock thing. And
Yes.
what was the theme of the painting that day?
Well, this particular group, we didn't do the themes like
Right.
the earlier group, the Paragon Arts
You just
or
had three.
Fusion Arts,
You just had 3 hours, and
and you
yeah,
just paint what you want. So some people brought paintings that they've been working on for months.
yeah.
Other people, like me, start from scratch and finish in that time frame. So the theme for me was peacocks and renewal, rebirth. And after I'd finished this painting, I believe this is when I started to learn about the meaning of rebirth in terms of Jesus, in terms of certain spiritual figures. And this is actually kind of interesting because of, like, for example, the rock garden with the picture of Mother Mary in the stone there. His energy keeps showing up, keeps following me around, and it's beautiful to have this. And it's out of left field often. Even just a couple of days ago, I made because I'm vegan now, I made a dish for myself and I poured a pile of rosemary. For some reason, I really like rosemary these days. And so I poured maybe like half a cup, not that much, a quarter of a cup of rosemary into the dish. The first time I tried to become vegetarian, which was in Doha, I had already been.
You went to Brazil.
No, yeah, no, yeah, the worst place to go for that. But Chris was visiting me, and I'd already been with him in Brazil when he was playing soccer there. And he took me to one of these restaurants, and it was, or the place he was staying did, this doctor. And it was like meat heaven. It was just like unbelievable, all this meat, including chicken hearts, which was his favorite, Chris. But when I decided to, because I had no energy when I was in Doha trying to become a vegan or a vegetarian, there was a Brazilian barbecue restaurant right next door to my building. And it was traditional. Chris said it's got everything traditional, like in Sao Paulo. And so we went there, and I just stuffed myself with meat to break this vegetarian thing. And he ate. He said it was the only thing disappointed him in that restaurant was there were no chicken hearts, which was his favorite. I don't know how they prepare them,
Interesting.
but I forgot what my point was there. Chicken hearts.
You had
meat.
become. No, it wasn't chicken hearts. You said that you had recently become vegan.
Oh, rosemary. So I I thought, why am I pouring so much rosemary? It was kind of interesting, but just the last few days. And then Suma had popped into my mind just before I did that. And you have seen the image, I believe, where the picture from the rock garden and the first picture I took of her
Yeah.
are almost identical, which I didn't notice for like 15 years.
Is this the Mother Mary
Yeah,
look-alike?
yeah. It's stunning until it showed up beside each other on the phone. And so I was sitting there, and she had popped into my head. I was looking at my one painting that's always against the bookshelf next to the TV, which is a gigantic heart that's emerging out of the earth, which is what I feel is going on right now.
Like chicken heart.
Yeah, bigger than a
Okay,
chicken heart. It would be
okay.
the biggest chicken you've ever seen.
Chris's favorite.
Yeah, that's why he loves that painting. Yeah. So, but the symbolism keeps showing up because it reminded me, yes, this is like the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and then the equivalent for Mother Mary. And my friend in Oman said, yes, even the blue that you've selected there, that's the color that's used for her. And so many symbolisms. And then I saw something about rosemary on Instagram, and there's a link there with Mother Mary as well because her favorite flower is the rose. So there's a particular
Oh,
rose associated.
Rosemary.
And then I didn't make that connection, but
Me
it's too
neither.
obvious.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So, there's inner psychologists listening to this
Yeah,
or
really
listen to
like.
it. Maybe they'll have a different
Now
idea.
let's put your jacket on, Peter. We'll take you back to your room.
So, yeah, no, it's really, I love this though. These kind of not random, because they're not random.
I
But
also enjoy how you're not using them as like solid signs, as in like I must go this way or it must mean this. Or there's some people I've met they're into like mystical things, but they hard nose it, and then they say like, oh, this means that you're getting ill or your teeth are gonna fall out, etc. So
yeah.
I love that you always just enjoy. You just observe and enjoy it, and you just let it be free.
And thank you. That's really important for me, actually. And this is why I really cannot follow a particular religion.
Yeah, you're not superstitious about it. That's the word.
Yeah, but I'm also not limiting myself by saying you're not allowed to believe in this. It's considered, you know, improper or inappropriate to have this belief or have these experiences. So this is the initial challenge I faced personally when it came to the Bible, although I didn't go deeply into it, but other religions as well, where they put constraints that the meanings like you described, it would lose the magic for me.
Yeah, because you're only looking at the symbolism, and it's, Mary has that color blue because of all the cultures that use that color to represent her. It's not like you believe it and it's definitely Mary. It's just, this is what it means to you, or this is what it indicates to you.
Right, and I didn't choose that blue because I knew this is
Exactly, you learn about it later.
I use it, and
Yeah.
I don't realize that I'm doing it.
Like, I would probably see that blue, and as a branding person, I'd be like, oh, it's Cafe Nero blue. I'm kidding.
And that's why you're not my brander.
Yeah, exactly. And behind you, that orange is so Van Gogh. Oh no, lovely.
Yeah, you're opening up a whole other door here.
I know.
Yeah,
It
he
has-
keeps showing up. He again showed up. He keeps showing up.
He's following you.
Yeah, I love it.
It's
I
like
love it.
Interstellar, and he's
Well-
in Starry Night swirling around behind you, being like, Peter.
But it makes you think about all these notions about parallel lives and about how everything is in the present moment. So don't think of time as past, present, future in a linear sort of way, sequential. It's all happening right now at this present moment. So if that's the case, then Van Gogh's consciousness exists now. And in a material sense, it may be somewhere else, because once you enter into that realm,
Yeah, once you go quantum,
it's
like,
can be
ironically,
anything.
we don't have time to talk about any more crazy things. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Peter, so much. I really enjoyed this particular one.
yeah. Thanks, Red. Me too. Me too. And like I say, almost every single time you ask questions in such a way that I've either forgotten or never thought about these things, or has me reinterpret experiences.
Well, if you ever lose your mind, at least you'll have these YouTube interviews. I'm kidding.
And the paintings as well.
Okay, right. I'll see you next time. What are we getting next time, painting-wise?
Well, I don't know exactly. There's two options. One is one last painting that was done in Oman, which was done during another Eid Ramadan period, so a very
Mhm.
spiritually powerful time. Or it'll be one of the paintings that I started in Oman but finished in Dubai. Or it'll be just a pure Dubai painting. Because things changed when I moved to Dubai.
Yeah. Like we're halfway through. This is the number 6
Yeah,
interview. So
yeah. So, I mean, it could be that I end up going just to Dubai
hmm.
because,
I'm sure the universe was going to tell you anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Red.